On a brisk fall morning in a peaceful town, a 65-year-old African-American veteran entered a cafe, anticipating nothing beyond a warm pastry and his usual coffee. Instead of friendly faces and cheerful exchanges, he encountered icy glares and harsh remarks. The owner locked eyes with him and bluntly ordered him to leave, forbidding his return. Shocked and deeply insulted, he went home with a firm resolve to set things right. What unfolded next left the cafe owner regretting his actions in the most profound way. Be part of inspiring stories. Like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to receive daily lessons filled with wisdom and compassion. Drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. The crisp morning air greeted Henry Walker as he parked his trusty old truck outside Riverbend Cafe, a cozy diner nestled in Haven Creek Center. For years, this establishment had been a hub of community spirit, offering hot coffee, comfort food, and familiar company. Henry, a retired soldier with a kind heart and a signature cap stitched with a service emblem, had frequented this cafe for as long as he could recall. Stepping onto the sidewalk, he paused to appreciate the cafe's rustic appeal. The rich scent of brewing coffee and fresh pastries blended seamlessly with the amber-hued leaves scattered along the pavement. It was the kind of place where everyone was supposed to feel at home, or so he thought. The familiar chime of the doorbell signaled his entrance. He acknowledged a few regulars with a nod, their quiet discussions briefly pausing as they noticed him. Henry eased onto his usual stool, his aging joints protesting slightly. "Morning, Adam," he greeted the owner with an easy smile. "I'll take my usual coffee and a slice of that apple pie. Smells like it just came out of the oven." Adam, the cafe's middle-aged proprietor, stepped out from the kitchen. His expression, typically warm and inviting, was now rigid and distant. With tense hands gripping the counter, he locked eyes with Henry, an unsettling frost in his gaze. "We're out of pie," Adam stated flatly, his tone devoid of the friendliness Henry was used to. Perplexed, Henry glanced toward the display case a few feet away. There sat a fresh, golden apple pie untouched. Confused, he gestured toward it. "Looks like you've got one right there," he said, offering a light-hearted chuckle. Adam's jaw clenched. "I said we're out," he barked, his voice sharp enough to turn heads. Conversations died down, and an uneasy silence settled over the cafe. Henry shifted slightly, unsure what had caused such abrupt hostility. "Everything okay, Adam?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Adam leaned in, fingers digging into the countertop. His voice dropped, each word deliberate and cutting. "Listen, Henry," he said coldly. "I think it's best if you don't come here anymore. I don't serve people like you." The word struck Henry like a sudden blow, leaving him momentarily speechless. The once inviting atmosphere of the cafe had vanished, replaced by an eerie silence and the weight of Adam's cruel words. Henry slowly rose, his aged hands unsteady as he reached for his cap. "I don't understand," he said, his voice calm yet resolute. "I've been coming here for years. Did I do something wrong?" Adam squared his shoulders, folding his arms tightly across his chest. "You did enough just by walking in," he shot back. "Now leave before I call the sheriff." Tension thickened in the cafe's air. Some customers averted their eyes, unwilling to meet Henry's gaze, while others sat frozen in disbelief. A young woman near the window abruptly stood, her voice trembling as she challenged Adam. "This isn't right," she declared. "You can't treat him like this." Adam's face darkened with anger as he spun toward her. "This is my cafe, and I'll run it how I see fit. If you don't like it, you're free to leave." The woman hesitated, her confidence wavering beneath Adam's piercing glare. Slowly, she sank back into her seat, shame flushing her face. Henry adjusted his cap, his shoulders weighed down by the moment. "I'll go," he said softly, "but this isn't over." As he stepped outside, the doorbell chimed one last time, its sound echoing through the now silent cafe. The crisp autumn air did little to dull the sting of what had just occurred. Henry climbed into his truck, gripping the wheel tightly as Adam's words replayed in his mind. A familiar ache surfaced. The sting of injustice he had hoped was left in the past. But then something shifted. His jaw tightened, a quiet fire igniting in his eyes. This wasn't the end of the story. Inside, Adam attempted to return to business as usual, but the tension in the room was undeniable. Some customers hurriedly settled their bills and left, casting disapproving glances his way. Others remained, their silence louder than words. Muttering to himself, Adam clung to his justifications. "I did what my father would have wanted," he reassured himself. "My cafe, my rules." But beneath the surface, a gnawing unease took hold. He had made a mistake, one far greater than he realized. Little did Adam know, his actions that day would set off a ripple effect, forcing Haven Creek to face its deepest prejudices. And for Henry Walker, this wasn't a defeat. It was the beginning of a battle he was more than ready to fight. Seated in his truck, Henry exhaled, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He clenched the steering wheel, his knuckles white with frustration. The town he had called home for decades suddenly felt distant and unfamiliar. But Henry wasn't a man to let injustice go unanswered. With a steady hand, he reached for his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. "James," he said as his son picked up, "we need to talk." That evening, Henry sat at his modest dining table, facing his son, James Walker, a well-respected senator and passionate advocate for veterans and civil rights. Within hours, James had arrived from the city, his presence commanding yet compassionate. As his father recounted the events of the day, James listened intently, his expression darkening with each word. James's expression hardened, his jaw tight with restrained anger. "Dad, this is unacceptable. Adam Cross has no right to treat you, or anyone, like that. Haven Creek deserves better." Henry remained composed, nodding slowly. "I know, son, but anger alone won't change anything. We need a plan." James leaned back, his mind already strategizing. "I'll take care of it, Dad. I'll make calls, bring in the right people. This isn't just about you. It's about everyone in this town who's suffered discrimination and silence." Henry placed a firm hand on his son's arm. "I trust you, James. But remember, this isn't about revenge. It's about making things right." By morning, Haven Creek was buzzing. News of the incident at Riverbend Cafe had spread like wildfire, filling grocery aisles, church pews, and street corners with hushed discussions. Some residents were outraged, questioning how a man they had known for years could act with such cruelty. Others defended Adam, insisting he was merely standing by tradition or exercising his rights as a business owner. At the center of the storm, Adam Cross found himself increasingly alone. His cafe, once a lively hub, had turned eerily quiet. Regular customers avoided his eyes, while others stopped coming altogether. Even his most loyal employees grew uneasy under the weight of the scandal. "They'll get over it," Adam muttered, though the doubt in his voice betrayed him. But as days passed, it became clear Haven Creek wasn't going to forget this anytime soon. James wasted no time. Within days, he arranged a town hall meeting, drawing an unprecedented crowd. Some came to support Henry, others out of curiosity, and few to defend Adam. Standing at the front, James addressed them, his voice steady and assured, a voice honed from years of speaking in high-stakes chambers. "What happened to my father at Riverbend Cafe wasn't just a personal slight," James began. "It was a symptom of something much deeper, a history of prejudice that has lingered in this town for too long. Today we have a choice. We can turn away and ignore it, or we can face it head-on." A ripple moved through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, while others crossed their arms defensively. From the back of the room, a voice rang out. "What's your goal here, Walker? To ruin Adam's business? He has every right to serve whoever he wants." James turned toward the speaker, his gaze unwavering. "You're right. He does have that legal right. But let me ask you this. Is that the kind of town we want to be? A place where people are turned away because of their skin color? Because of where they come from?" Silence fell over the room. "Riverbend Cafe isn't just Adam Cross's business," James continued. "It's a reflection of our community. And right now, That reflection is one of division and intolerance. But it doesn't have to be. Together, we can turn it into something better. Meanwhile, inside Riverbend Cafe, Adam sat alone in his office, his hands trembling as he scrolled through the headlines on his phone. Local cafe owner faces backlash for racial discrimination. A town divided, Haven Creek at a crossroads. Adam Cross felt the weight of his choices pressing in, but pride refused to let him waver. When Sarah, one of his longest-serving waitresses, hesitantly approached, he bristled at her concerned expression. "Adam," she began cautiously, "we need to talk. People are upset, and honestly, I don't blame them. What you did to Henry was—" Adam's palm slammed against the desk, silencing her mid-sentence. "This is my cafe, Sarah. My family built it, and I won't have anyone telling me how to run it." She flinched, but didn't back down. "Then ask yourself why it's empty, Adam. Maybe this isn't just about what you want." Without another word, she turned and walked out, leaving him alone with the echoes of his own defiance. Tensions boiled over when a peaceful protest formed outside Riverbend Cafe. Led by James Walker, the demonstrators held signs that read "No place for hate" and "Equality for all." From behind the cafe window, Adam watched, his frustration simmering. "They're trying to destroy me," he muttered. But as the hours passed, his anger wavered. Among the protesters, he recognized familiar faces, neighbors, old friends, even distant relatives. Their presence forced an unsettling realization. This wasn't just about Henry Walker. It was about the soul of Haven Creek itself. Yet, Adam's pride kept him clinging to his beliefs. As the crowd dispersed that evening, James approached the cafe and knocked firmly on the door. Adam hesitated before answering, his face an unyielding mask of defiance. "We need to talk," James said, his voice measured yet firm. Adam's tone was ice-cold. "I have nothing to say to you." James leaned in slightly, his steady gaze piercing through Adam's defenses. "This isn't going away. You can face it head-on, or you can watch everything you built crumble." Adam didn't reply. Instead, he slammed the door shut. Yet, as he locked up for the night, James's words lingered, gnawing at the edges of his certainty. The atmosphere in Haven Creek had irrevocably shifted. What had begun as a quiet injustice in a small-town diner had exploded into a reckoning. Once a close-knit community, the town now stood divided, caught between the pull of tradition and the demand for change. At the center of it all sat Adam Cross, alone in his empty cafe late into the night. The chairs were neatly stacked, the counter wiped spotless, yet the silence was suffocating. His gaze drifted to an old photograph on the wall, a younger version of himself, beaming beside his father, the cafe's original owner. His father's stern expression stared back at him, mirroring Adam's own conflicted thoughts. "You're the keeper of this place," his father used to say. "Never let anyone tell you how to run it." For years, those words had been his shield. Now, for the first time, Adam wondered if they had also been his prison. Meanwhile, at the Walker household, James was mapping out his next steps. Seated around the table with Henry and a group of community leaders, he spoke with quiet authority. The tension in the room was undeniable, but James's resolve was unwavering. A legacy at a crossroads. Adam Cross's grip on the letter tightened as he listened to his daughter, Sarah, speak. She sat across from him, her expression a mixture of concern and quiet determination. "Dad," she said gently, "this isn't you." Adam's jaw tightened. "What do you mean? I'm protecting what's mine." Sarah shook her head, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "No, you're clinging to something that's already slipping away. Holding on to this cafe won't bring Grandpa back. It won't change the past. But what you do now, that's what matters." Adam exhaled sharply, leaning back in his chair. "You don't understand. This cafe is my father's legacy. It's all I have left of him." Sarah's gaze softened, but she didn't waver. "I know, Dad, but legacies aren't just about holding on to buildings or traditions. They're about what we leave behind for the future. Right now, all people see is anger and division. Is that really the legacy you want?" The question lingered in the air between them. Adam looked down at the letter again, the offer burning into his mind. The cafe, once the heart of Haven Creek, was now a ghost of what it had been. His father's words echoed in his ears. Never let anyone tell you how to run it. But for the first time, Adam wondered if those words had bound him more than they had guided him. Sarah reached across the desk, her hand resting lightly on his. You don't have to fight this alone, Dad. Let go of the anger. Do something that makes you proud. For the first time in weeks, Adam didn't have a response to something that isn't as significant as you believe it is. This cafe, it's just bricks and mortar, Dad. What truly matters is the community it serves. And right now you're shutting people out, not just from a cafe, but from yourself. Adam turned away, his throat tight. You don't understand. This place was my father's life. I can't simply walk away. Sarah reached across the desk, resting her hand over his. Maybe it's time to think about what kind of legacy you want to leave, Dad. One built on exclusion, or one that proves people can change. Her words struck Adam harder than he expected. For the first time, he considered the possibility that she was right. A few days later, James Walker arrived early at the cafe. To his surprise, Adam was already waiting, standing outside with the letter in hand. Morning, Adam, James said cautiously. Adam glanced at the letter, then back at James. I got your offer, he said gruffly. You and your people really think you can turn this place around? James met his gaze steadily. We don't just think so, we know so. But we can't do it without you. Adam's brow furrowed. Without me? You want me gone? James shook his head. We don't want to erase your legacy, Adam. We want to build on it. But for that to happen, you have to let go of the resentment that's holding you back. You can be part of this change, or you can keep resisting it. The choice is yours. Adam stood still for a long moment, the weight of his decision etched across his face. Finally, handed the letter to James. All right, Adam said, his voice thick with emotion. But if I do this, it'll be on my terms. James nodded, a small smile on his lips. We can work with that. The next morning, whispers spread through Haven Creek like wildfire. Adam Cross had agreed to sell Riverbend Cafe. The news stunned the town. Some saw it as the end of tradition, while others viewed it as a step toward a more inclusive future. Inside the cafe, a small group gathered to finalize the deal. James Walker sat at the table with Adam, flanked by representatives from the coalition that had backed the purchase. The air was tense, but hopeful. Adam, clearly conflicted, fidgeted with the pen in his hand. His daughter, Sarah, stood nearby, offering silent support. Before I sign this, Adam said in a low voice, I need to say something. All eyes turned to him as he set the pen down. I know I've been stubborn, and I know I've hurt people, Henry Walker most of all. I can't undo what I did, but I want to make it right. If this place is going to change, I want to help, not just to save face, but because I need to be better. The room fell silent. Then James nodded, a small smile forming. That's all we've ever wanted, Adam. Let's make this work together. With that, Adam signed the papers, officially, handing over the cafe. A new chapter was beginning. In the following weeks, the community came together to transform Riverbend Cafe into something new. The Unity Table, a space devoted to bringing people together and celebrating diversity. Volunteers from across Haven Creek helped with renovations. The walls were painted in warm, inviting colors, the booths reupholstered, and a section of the cafe was dedicated to honoring the town's journey toward unity. As the town embraced its transformation, the once divided community found itself coming together in unexpected ways. Familiar faces who had once stood on opposing sides now worked side by side, bound by a shared commitment to change. The Unity Table was more than a new name. It was a symbol of the progress they had fought for. Among the first to step inside when the doors reopened was Henry Walker. The new sign gleamed above the entrance, and Adam stood just inside, watching as Henry approached. Their eyes met, and after a moment of hesitation, Adam nodded. "Glad to have you here," he said, his voice softer than before. Henry studied him before extending his hand. "Glad to be here, Adam." Their handshake was firm, carrying the weight of old wounds and the promise of a fresh start. When the cafe opened to the public, the energy inside was electric. Laughter and conversation filled the space as people reconnected. Some paused to admire the mural on the back wall, a powerful image of people from different backgrounds sharing a meal together. At the center of the painting, two figures bore a striking resemblance to Adam and Henry, their hands clasped in unity. Adam stayed on as head chef, just as he had promised, working alongside a diverse staff. Each day tested him, forcing him to confront the biases he had once held. Sarah remained by his side, guiding him toward the better man he was trying to become. On the grand reopening day, a red ribbon stretched across the entrance, and Henry stood at one end, scissors in hand. As the crowd hushed, he spoke clearly. "This cafe has been here for generations. It's seen its share of struggles, but today, it stands for something greater, what we can achieve together." His gaze found Adam's, and for the first time in a long while, Adam felt a sense of peace. "And I want to thank Adam Cross for having the courage to make this happen. Change isn't easy, but it is necessary." The crowd erupted into applause as the ribbon was cut, officially ushering in a new era for the cafe. Inside, the space buzzed with renewed energy. Old friendships were rekindled, and new ones formed over shared meals. At one table, Henry and Adam sat together, their families beside them. "I never thought I'd see this day," Henry admitted with a small smile. Adam chuckled. "Neither did I, but I'm glad we did." Nearby, James Walker and Margaret Phillips discussed plans for the cafe's future, events that would foster connection, from storytelling nights to diversity workshops. As word of the transformation spread, visitors from neighboring towns came to witness it firsthand. The unity table became a symbol of hope, a model for healing in a world often divided. For Adam, the journey wasn't over. Every day brought new challenges, new chances to prove his commitment. Slowly, the town began to see him differently, not as the man who had once shut people out, but as someone working to bring them together. Late one evening, long after closing, Adam and Henry sat in the quiet cafe. The mural cast a soft glow, the hum of the dishwasher the only sound. Henry sighed. "I never thought I'd call this place home again." Adam met his gaze, a hint of gratitude in his expression. "And I never thought I'd get the chance to fix what I broke. Thank you for giving me that chance." Henry smiled. "We've both learned a lot, Adam, and I think this town has, too." As they sat in comfortable silence, the laughter of the day still echoed in their minds, a reminder of how far they had come and how much further they could go together. The laughter and voices from earlier in the evening still hung in the air, a reflection of how much they had overcome and the possibilities that lay ahead. The past had shaped them, but it no longer defined them. Instead, they stood on the foundation of progress, unity, and renewed purpose. Now take a stand for justice. Subscribe, express your thoughts in the discussion, and make these narratives a part of your daily experience. Together, we can make a lasting impact and shape a brighter future.